Hey, hello again, everybody. Welcome back in. I am back in the test server. I am going to be covering the 3 new mythic artifacts that were added to the game, and I also found 6 new hero exclusive pieces of gear. I'll go over them and I'll show you one of them in action. Let me start out by covering the 3 new mythic artifacts that are going to be in the game. So here I have the Dragon Blood Goblet. This is going to be for the Defender class. This mythic artifact will increase the defense by 10% and damage by 10%, of course, if you have it at a lower level. I also have one here at 25. So you can see how this will scale. It does scale in the 0.5 increments. You'll get up to 12% more defense, and you'll also be able to do more damage by 12%. When you take damage, both the defense and the damage increase are double for 10 seconds. This piece is going to be for those defenders that scale off defense. So top of mind, Azor, Gun, just to mention a couple of them. And as you can see here, I kind of have the Goddess Grace to just so you can see kind of the similarities and the differences in them. Goddess Grace is essentially you're just stacking defense. That's essentially what it allows you to do. This one is a little bit of damage on top of that. So I didn't really test it out because we know that the defenders class don't do a whole lot of damage yet. Hopefully they kind of tweak this a little bit so they are able to do a little bit more damage. It's always, at least with a defensive type piece, it's always, interesting that they still have this attack being added to it. If it was a truly defense piece, then I would have said change this to defense, give a little bit more defense to the heroes, but it will be a new artifact that we can play around with. Gun does not have an exclusive yet. A sword does have his, so this is something that I would imagine those type of heroes being able to utilize. So that's the defender class. Now let me go to both the fighter and the marksman class. So for the fighters, the new one that is coming in is called the Shattered Hilt. Now, the Shattered Hilt here will increase single target damage. So this thing is going to be made for bosses. And I can already tell from the testing that that's essentially what they were going for. It's giving us an opportunity again to catch up to the power creep or to be able to stay on top of it for whatever content is coming in next for the game. You can see here at 10, it increases the single damage by 10%. For every 5 instances of damage dealt, it increases the single target damage by an extra 1% and it stacks up to 10 times. So the quicker this builds, you get to the 10% right away. From all the testing and the clips that I collected, you can kind of tell because it'll show, right? It'll show on top of the hero the artifact symbol. And then once it stacks, it just doesn't show anymore, so you know that it reached the limit. Now, the difference between a 10 to a 25 essentially is that the damage increases to 20%. The stacks do not change. So I took it for the spin. I'm going to show you here how I set things up, number one. And I'm going to show you some data that I collected to see how this is performing. Just to go over the brief testing and how I do things, I like to just bring in solo fighters to kind of give you an idea of how much damage they can do. So the way that I pretty much place this out is that I bring in the hero that I'm testing, and then based on, like in this example here, the Nightmare Lord is who I'm using, is Torador. I'm using Sun Wan Khan as my example here. So essentially it's a solo run. I'm protecting them with Carnelian to make sure that if they cannot break the shields, that they are able to outlast that damage, and Hollow here to do the heals and of course build up a little bit of rage just to get as many ultimates as we can out of this. The point is just trying to see how much damage they can do in that period of the run. Now for this instances here, what I decided to do is that I left everything as you see it, and the only thing that I changed was the artifact. So let me go over some of the data that I collected. So here we go. So essentially was a comparison. The Shattered Hilt versus the Wailing Skull, because that is our preferred artifact when we go into single target battles, especially when it comes to the guild bosses, right? And not only that, if we don't have an exclusive for the fighter, this is the one that we particularly like to choose, because that little creature, that little ghost that pops up, takes some of the attributes from the hero, adds it to them, and they do damage, which is the intriguing part. So here on the right hand side, I'm kind of illustrating as to how much stats someone had with the Soulbunner kind of set and the Wicked Vengeance test set that I created to test this stuff out. You can kind of see the speed here and the critical damage and how much rage regeneration he has. I will make this accessible. I will copy and paste the link of the file to share with you in the description of this video, just in case you want to peek at it. I'm also going to post it on my Discord, just so it's there for you to look at it. All right, so here is the 3 runs that I did with the Wailing Skull. You can kind of see here that we are in the 19-20,000s, which is what I'm accustomed for an A5 Song Wukong Khan to able to do. He does break the second shield, so he's able to burst that a lot of damage. So then the range that he comes in, 165, 157, 150 damage just on Drake's Chasm by himself. And, you know, you're going to see it. Once you put a proper composition around him, you inspire him, you give him everything else that he needs, he can just outscale the damage. Now, the Shattered Hilt for this hero, it was surprising because, as you can see here, we did get more damage out of him. Okay, now his exclusive takes him even more on top of that. But for this, I just wanted to compare it to the Wailing Skull, because this is a mythic artifact. It's going to be accessible right away. So there's going to be some situations where you may actually want to consider leveling this one instead of the Wailing Skull. So they're kind of changing the meta a little bit when it comes to the artifacts. So you can see here the damage that Song Wukong Khan did. It increases damage because he was able to stack more damage on top of what he was already doing. Now, there are some situations here where this does change. With Jira, on the other hand, things kind of took a step backwards, and she was not able to do a whole lot of damage. Now, this is them doing the damage by themselves. Now, this is intriguing because now it will just, with this preliminary data that was able to collect, now it just makes me question. Now I'm going to have to form a composition around her, kind of make her the star. Can then she benefit from the hilt over Wailing Skull, or do we keep her on Wailing Skull? So those are tests that we need to come. Those are tests that we're going to have to do for each one of our fighters now. But when I switched over, I don't know if it just took too long for the stacks to build, or that the fact that Song Wukong Khan was doing more damage with the clones that played a factor into this. But for her, the Wailing Skull still was the king for it. Now then, I brought in my arrogance here in the test server. 8-3 arrogance, okay? I have not put him to 8-5 yet, but 8-3 did enough. I collected a couple of data points here with the Wailing Skull. You can see 8,000 is his range, 74, 71k in terms of total damage. When I tried that Shattered Hilt, 8711 and 8751 were the 2 runs. So you can see it kind of increases damage a little bit for him, at least in single target fights. I'm still going to prefer his exclusive, but for you, those of you that are coming up in the game or in the mid, and you haven't been able to procure Arrogance exclusive, where you cannot level it yet to the 19, you know, that sweet spot where it starts passing the Wailing Skull, Shattered Hilt might come into play for him as well. Lord Finesse at A5, of course, he's just one of these heroes that was added to it. I'm running him as an Infernal. No, I did not run him with Soul Cadence or Twin Fin. He was just solo. I just wanted to make sure that he got that little boost. You can see here, I kind of got similar numbers to what I have gotten in the past with him, which is in the 13,000 range. You can see that how much it translates to damage. But when it comes to the Shattered Hilt for him, it did not benefit him. So you can kind of see how much more damage he's doing with the creature alongside than with not having him and trying to depend on getting that additional damage with this artifact. So this is going to be situational. Is it going to supplant Wailing Skull? For some heroes, I think it might. Not for everybody else. All right. So I think that there's going to be a play now for both artifacts. All right. Oh, for those of you that are curious, and especially with GBG stuff, no, the BP is not the same with these two. Wailing Skull is still coded to have more BP than the Shattered Hilt. So for GBG instances, you are going to want to be leveling Wailing Skulls. That is going to be the primary reason that you are going to be want to investing in them, especially if that is the content that you care about. Salazar A5, again, he is one of these heroes that did benefit from having Shattered Hilt over the Wailing Skull. You can kind of see here from his single performance, it says the damage that he did, 7,600, 7,489. So he's kind of in the 7,500 range. When I put him in the Shattered Hilt, it pushed him up to 8,000. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna make this available. This is going to be an ongoing discussion as to which one of these artifacts, these mythic artifacts, we're going to want to use for a hero. I also posted here highlight the overall stats of the gear that I use for each one of these heroes, which was essentially just give them the same set to go ahead and test again. The third artifact that is being introduced is for the Marksman. Blightcaller's Claw, again, is based on single target damage. This one increases by 14% when it's at 10. Basic attack has a 15% chance to trigger a special strike that deals 80% physical damage to one target. This effect can only be triggered once every 4 seconds, and you'll see this every time on the clip. You just saw it. Every time it would trigger, it would just animate. Okay, so here I also have it at 25, so you can kind of see the difference as it scales up. So it goes from 14 to 20%, and the special strike deals 100% damage then instead of 20. It has a chance. Special effects tries to deal 80% when it's at 10 and 100 when it's fully level. The amount of time that it takes to trigger, that doesn't change, and the chance that it takes does not change either. Okay, so I did collect some data. I took some marksmen from this, and I decided, all right, let's take it for a spin and see what it can do. All right, so let me go back here to my sheet. I'm going to change over to the tab that says marksman. So here we have the comparison, which is the Spirit Siphon versus the Blightcaller's Claw. Spirit Siphon is the one that we use for our single target damage if we don't have the exclusive, especially Hex or Silas. So that's exactly who I decided to test first. Here I have Hex A5. I teamed them up with a Lore Piercer. You can kind of see the stats here. Again, if you are curious as to how much critical damage, speed, and attack each one of these heroes have. So again, Hex has a little bit of variability because it comes down to which cards he is eventually going to select. So that's what I decided to do 3 runs with each one of these. So you can see here with the Siphons, he's in the 8,000 range, and that translates to about 72 to 73,000 damage. All right, so how did he do with the Claw? Well, the Claw did elevate his damage, especially with that 15% chance to trigger extra physical damage. It did scale up into the 9,000s, and you can see here one of the better runs that I got based on the RNG, 9732. That scaled up to about 89,000 K damage when it came to Drake's Chasm. So definitely big boost that our marksmen are getting by utilizing this particular mythic artifact. All right, here we go. Silas A5. Again, team them up with the Lore Piercer. He did about 7,500 with the siphon on his solo runs. That damage did increase a little bit. He's now in the 79,223 range, so you can kind of see how much more damage he added to his ability, or how much more damage he was able to do on Drake's Chasm when it came to then wearing the claw. And then I also brought in Citron because I wanted to have a hero that was not a piercer. So again, he got teamed up with an Infernal Lord. You can kind of see here how he started by himself, 5,000 range when it came to the damage, 47,000, 48,000. It translated to damage. And then with the claw, again, it increased the amount of damage that he was doing because that 15% procced. And so he was able to do a little bit more physical damage. So it did translate to more damage at the end. So the claw is going to be beneficial for the marksmen in this game, especially those that specialize in doing single target damage. Let me quickly cover the 6 new pieces of exclusive gear that was able to find here in the test server. I'm going to start with the Epic Wrath. He's going to get a Wicked Vengeance weapon. Essentially, what's going to allow him to do is increase his AoE damage by 50% during the heavy blow. Just as a reminder, the heavy blow is essentially his ultimate, where he does deal a little bit more damage. Now, I think that this would actually allow him to remain viable when it comes to doing boss battles, especially for those of you that do not have Torador. And then I do remind you that he does have his own exclusive artifact as well, which actually allows him to do more damage from heavy, the heavy blow. And also this then ignores 20% of the enemy defense when he does only specifically is targeting one specific enemy. So they're just trying to make this is one way that they're trying to make the epics viable to the end game. The second one that I found was Nocturne. It's actually a breastplate. It's a Wicked Vengeance piece as well. And for this one, during his Impure Wings, he will gain an additional 15% attack. So they're just trying to make sure that he can do a little bit more damage, especially when it comes to his ultimate. All right, the other piece that we found was Valeriya. Yeah, Valeriya is getting her own exclusive amulet in the Cataclysm set. For this one, she will gain an additional 15% critical damage. It does increase the vulnerability that she applies by the plunging slash to 25%. So where's the passive here? Let me go to the passive. It's right here. So it inflicts the vulnerability. This is 20%, so it will increase it to 25%, essentially just allowing her to do a little bit more damage. So the other piece that we found was the Wicked Vengeance weapon for Razaak. That's exactly right. Before we go over it, which is the when he activates his soul-eating fish, just as a reminder, where's the talent here? Let me go to the talent. Each basic attack here launches a 30% chance of generating 2 soul-eating fish. And essentially what it does, it attacks one enemy with the highest HP, dealing 200% damage. So the weapon, what it's going to allow him to do is that then he'll deal 15% splash damage to up to 5 enemies that are nearby in addition to the target, right? Where is this going to become applicable? I think that this might spice him up a little bit more for the Furious Torrent because we already use him there. He's not the top tier, right? We have Nyx. We like to have Nyx. Razaak is kind of second with the rework that Kai got. If you get him to A3, he can catch up to him. So I think that this weapon just like in those type of situations where you are targeting multiple units, multiple waves coming at you, that's exactly where you're gonna want to use this weapon. Elowyn is getting her own exclusive and it's going to be a breastplate. Now, you're probably saying, does she really need it? Slow you down. It's not as bad as you think. It won't make her even more overpowered than what she actually is. Her exclusive is when deployed, it increases Elowyn's max HP by an amount equal to 20 times her healing effect. So if we build her with 1,000 or let's see, 100 healing effect, that theoretically should translate to 2,000 HP. All right, we'll be able to tell that by how much each is able to survive in Zemra, if that's exactly how that effect is working. The 6 piece that I was able to find was going to be for Ajax. That's right, Ajax is getting his own exclusive as well. It is going to be a Bangle. It's a Cataclysm piece. So for Ajax, what's really interesting here, it says during the distracted breath, it increases his damage by 10% and also will randomly inflict one of the following continuous damage effects: burning, poison, or radiant erosion. I do have a clip to show you how this is behaving. Okay, so here's the clip of that I collected when I was doing his test runs, especially when it came to Soulbound Arcana and all the Cataclysm sets. So here's what I want you to pay. So he has the opportunity to randomly apply one of the 3 continuous damages. So if you notice there, when he applied the poison, his breath was green, and then you saw the poison mark be activated here. I'm going to let him do another one. So you see this very bright yellow when it comes to the radiant erosion, and then the customary red type fire that we see when he applies the burn. So I'm going to let this go a couple of more ultimates just so you can see the different colors, so you can kind of then get an idea of which one of these effects is going to be applied. We saw the poison there, and then again, there he goes, radiant erosion. And I think you all seen the fire one, so we can go on and show you the testings that I did when it came to this specific gear, because I was really curious. I wanted to see if the effects, if this piece of gear was going to be able to really push his damage when it came down to it. All right, so let me go back here, and now I'm going to go back to my sheet. And this is a separate one, but I'll make it available. Essentially what I did is I picked up 5 different sets, and I'm going to go through the whole rationale for each one of them. I picked out an Infernal set that I had. I have a Soulbound Arcana, and then I have just a standard Cataclysm set where he's not gaining any stats at all. And I avoided every piece of exclusive gear that I have here in the test server, because remember that you can put a piercer piece on him, he'll do more damage to air. You can put an infernal piece on him, he'll have more penetration. You can put a northerner piece on him, he'll gain more HP. So that's what I was trying to go for, to make sure that if I did have any Cataclysm rings, that it did not come from a faction, otherwise he would gain the stat from them. So here's the standard one. Then I also have the Cataclysm set that I tested, where I only had his exclusive. And then out of curiosity, because I think the Infernal one is the best, he's not only gaining damage, but he's getting increased penetration. I also added that to the test. So that's exactly what I'm going to show you here, just to kind of give you an idea of how well this set is going to do. Let me go back here. I have him here, Ajax, Awaken 5. So when I did the Infernal Roar set, one thing that I do have, I picked an Esoteria Lord. It was Venoma with the Tear of Twilight to do all of this testing. All right, so just that's the reference point, and then I just wanted to see what each one of these sets would do. The other thing is, why did I pick Venoma? I just wanted to get as many ultimates out as quickly as possible, just to give him a chance to do as much damage as I could, because the more ultimates eventually that comes down to it, if there is a difference between the sets, you're going to see the separation a little bit more the more times that ultimate does get triggered, right? Remember that, because it's all about that distracted breath. That ultimate needs to trigger as often as possible. So here with the Infernal Roar said, this is kind of customary stuff that I see when it comes to comparing him in the Infernal Roar and Soulbound Arcana. Soulbound Arcana always rules, because again, it's the destructive breath that always coming down to it. Now, when I just tested the standard Cataclysm set that I had on him, there we go. That's the amount of damage that he did. It's kind of on par to what the Infernal Roar set did. Okay, so that's exactly what that went through. Then what I had the chance to do is taste his exclusive. His exclusive kind of gave him a little bit more damage. Unfortunately, it did not catch up to Soulbound Arcana. That's the only difference there. So the fact that he was able to apply poison or apply Radiant Erosion, or again, apply his burning. They didn't quite help, all right, when it came to that. But think about the benefits about having those debuffs being applied. Let's say you bring him in, you team him up with the Arborers. There are some Arborers that do more damage when Radiant Erosion is applied. Boom, you're going to have it there, right? There are heroes coming into the game where they do more damage when Poison is applied. Numeria may be coming to the global server. I don't know when, but she'll eventually come. But those of you in Forerunner server, that's a team up that you can think about, especially if you have that exclusive piece with them. So just think about the possibilities there, all right? And then, of course, we have heroes that can scale off of burn. And then the last one, like I said, I wanted to give him that extra damage, the extra penetration with the Infernal exclusive ring, team him up with that, the Bangle, of course. And what do we get here? Let me release that. There we go. 2356, 2522 on the 2 runs. So it did help in some situations, but the RNG hit, whether it was Radiant Erosion, whether it was burn, whether it was poison, that did help matters. So in a sense, yes, adding all this exclusive on top of each other eventually will lead to a little bit more damage. But that's essentially what I found out about that particular piece of exclusive gear. That is going to be situation, right? It's not really increasing the damage. Maybe in Drake's Chasm is not the area to use him. Maybe you want to be sneaky and bring it into GVG. That's kind of the situations that we're going to have to test it. There you have it. That's where I will leave it. So 3 new mythic artifacts for you to play with. New hero exclusive gear, especially in the T3 sets, to try to go collect, and hopefully we get some good rolls out of them, right? We're looking for those god pieces when it comes to these, especially with the Bangle for him and then the ring for the factions. Thank you all very much for tuning in and watching. I will see you all in the next Watcher of Realms video, and do please hit like and subscribe on your way out.